Newsfirst, NewsLine with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Hello there and a very good morning to you. I'm Sonali Wanikabadige sitting in for Faraz Shaukat Ali, who's taking a well-deserved break at home. Today is Friday the 13th of January 2017. Welcome to Newsline. We're joined by a very special guest. He is Mr. Asanga Abeyagoonasekara, Director General of a security think tank, Sri Lanka's first ever security think tank, I believe. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And welcome to the show. You're the Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies. Now, security think tanks and think tanks in general are a new thing for Sri Lanka, am I right? We haven't had a security think tank before, have we?
No, we never had a security think tank. This is the first time we are having it. And if you look at other countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they've been having security think tanks. India started in 1960s. It's called IDSA. And there are many places which do security research, and it's a great, I think, opportunity for us. And it was His Excellency the President, Maithripala Sirisena, who set this up, and we are very happy about it.
Mr. Abeyagoonasekara, let's talk a bit about the global trends in security, especially given the tectonic and paradigm shift in world politics, especially if you take the United States of America with coming in of President-elect Trump. There is a great deal of xenophobic tendencies, a lot of racism going on. How does one grapple with these issues, which are not just limited to one geographical area, but can be found across the board?
Well, I think first we need to understand, like Professor Joseph Nahi explains, a global, if you look at the entire world environment and how the power is sort of moving towards the power shifts, first we need to understand that. He explains saying that it's a 3D chessboard, the world that we live. At the top, we see a unipolar world, with the United States being having a superiority of the military strength that they have, which they have exercised on many occasions. And at the middle of the chessboard is a multipolar world where emerging economies such as China and many powers, economic powers, not only the United States but others, are also rising. And at the bottom, what you see is a multiplex world, which is states losing much power and non-state actors gaining more power. So, which is you could see from many of the, I mean, in 2016 there was clear examples of this, and this sort of power diffusion is happening at the bottom of the chessboard, and that should be understood by policymakers and the world that we live, because it's not the same world, the order, and you can see from the election victories of Trump and Brexit, the neoliberal order has been threatened. And if you look at we live in a world with a volatile security environment, I would say. And if you look at the amount of money that we spend on security, like 14 trillion last year, and it's about 13% of global GDP that's been spent on security. So it's a volatile environment, and Sri Lanka should understand its regional as well as extra-regional security threats. What are its threats? What are the vulnerabilities towards a nation that has we've fought a war for almost 3 decades. To understand this, and especially to make intelligent decisions, that's how a think tank can help. The culture of actually research, I mean, think tanks coming up is a great thing, because we underinvest in research. And
just before the show, you mentioned an interesting statistic. You said that the amount that we spend on research as Sri Lankans is at a very, very low level. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's about less than 1%. which is about 0.5, I would say. We don't spend much on research, and there was an interesting article by Professor Ajit Dialvis that we spend more on elephants than research. It's actually quite low than many countries, and if any nation, if you don't invest in research, you can't move into to make it that nation an innovative economy. If you see Singapore, South Korea, and many other countries, huge investments on research was made during the past, and that's how those nations came up to be, and I would say impressive in their value addition in terms of research on high-tech products mainly. So a nation that doesn't invest in research will not sort of move forward.
Okay. In terms of global terrorism, the entire world is in a very volatile state. There's ISIS on the one hand, so many other terrorist groups, terrorist outfits across the world. Also, cybersecurity is on the rise. Is Sri Lanka equipped to deal with the varying pressures?
Well, if you look at it, the world that we live, actually, the future wars will be in a stealth mode, I would say, in a secretive mode, because if you look at the developments of the submarines that's going on, even in our neighborhood, India, they are developing a nuclear submarine with ballistic missile capabilities called Arihant. There are 6 conventional submarines. They are developing 48 warships, which they are thinking to expand up to 198 warships. So the submarines are even the recent port call in Malaysia that explains what's going on. First is I would say submarines that's going on in the Indian Ocean. Then the second I would say is the space security wise, on reconnaissance and mainly on usage of SAR satellites for reconnaissance purposes, which India already has 2 of them. And also on cyber, like you mentioned, the recent attacks, and as well as that's from the Muslim cyber, the hackers, and those are actually a huge threat for the region as well as the world. So we need to sort of understand what areas they are sort of, how are they sort of working, and what areas, how do we sort of, as a government, how do we tackle these threats that's coming in. So first, an understanding of these areas are quite important, collection of data and all that for analysis, and then because Sri Lanka is vulnerable, because of course we need to strengthen our borders, our exclusive economic zone. We are an island. It could be used as a hub for training and various other purposes, and so we are, I think our security and intelligence are quite good, and we sort of keep all our sort of eyes open on all these areas. So,
Mr. Abeyagoonasekara, would you agree that Sri Lanka's defense and security approach is very top-down? How do people contribute? We have so many educated individuals who are educated not just in Sri Lanka but also overseas. However, their participation we don't see so much, and we have a great number of researchers, intellectuals leaving the country, especially in the fields of security and defense, and serve in other jurisdictions, which is such a shame. How do you comment on that?
I think the opportunities are not given, that's why they leave the country. When you have think tanks like this, research places like this, so they can join and they can be part of it. Now, when we started the Institute of National Security Studies, initially in July, we commenced our work. In August, I got appointed, and then we opened up for we created a resource pool about 50 eminent people around, and we have more than 50 now. We got them involved, and they were very happy to contribute because they were asking, we were waiting for a moment like this,
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
we could talk and send our ideas or observations. So the space is now created. I think earlier it was not there.
So do you think that now it has opened up?
Of course.
So intellectuals from across the world who are Sri Lankan can contribute to this think tank in order to ensure Sri Lanka's security is at an all-time high.
Definitely, because as a national think tank, it's open for the public. It belongs to the people. Like the Kadirgam Institute, when I was heading that, I mentioned this. The institute does not belong to a certain group of people or individuals, or it belongs to the people. I mean, this is what the idea of late Lakshman Kadirgam for that particular institute. But when you're a national think tank, the whole idea of being national means that it belongs to the people of the country, and of course anybody who wish to contribute and give ideas, and they can join our discussions. We started a security salon, which has become quite popular now, and we did 3 security salons. Security salon is a place where we have selected a number of people from who intellectuals invited, also foreign missions, ambassadors, attaches. We discussed about Indo-Pakistan issues that was going on. Then we discussed in the second salon about non-violent extreme groups. What are the threats towards a nation state, ISIS in the region. And the next one's on the 19th of this month. We are talking about environmental security and threats to us. So these discussions actually inviting these amazing individuals from around the world as well as within our country, can we be able to gather information and for our research, and also to educate the people and also policymakers to make intelligent decisions.
So you do agree that engagement with policymakers is of pivotal importance?
No, definitely, because I see a huge gap between researchers and policymakers, because research input is not taken for policy making. I mean, this is where the problem is.
Right.
And if you look at a gentleman like Saman Kalagama, who contributed enormously to our country from IPS, I think the data should be taken for policy making. Inputs have to be taken for policy making, because research can be done, and if it's not taken in for policy implementation and all that, then I wouldn't say we just do research by ourselves, but so the gap has to be bridged, and then that's really important. And for Davos, that's coming up, I think, which is on the 17th of this month. They have taken I think this year's theme is correct and very appropriate, I would say. The theme is responsive and responsible leadership. And that's what the world needs right now. If you look at it, the errors that we've made and during the past, especially the United States as as a global power, the issues in Libya and Syria, and we had the largest number of human catastrophe after the Second World War, and these are bad decisions. This is bad leadership, and it's clearly. So we need to sort of educate the policymakers to make the world a better place. How do we sort of do this? And it's important that people like researchers go into these delegations to Davos and all, especially Saman Kalagama and all. They make some good contributions, and they have made tremendous contributions. So researchers has to be recognized, and research inputs have to be taken in as a nation.
When we talk about national security and defense, how important is it that the people of Sri Lanka are aware of the needs of the day? Because there is no dissemination of information regarding this aspect. It is all very classified and hush-hush. So how are the people supposed to contribute in this effort?
Well, people's contribution could be, I would say the military the aspect of military. They have been very strong in their. I mean, they've demonstrated to the entire world how amazing they are actually by defeating the LTTE. And I think it's. They can contribute in many ways. The government also needs to sort of, because after between 3 decades of war, so it's sort of gradual. I don't think that you can't sort of expect everything overnight. But when you have avenues like think tanks, security think tanks, they can be part of it. They can come and contribute. If there are, in terms of military, building military is also 2 aspects. You have to have, for example, the nuclear submarine that's built in India. It's not part of the Ministry of Defense. It is under the Prime Minister's office, happening in a secretive manner. So it's a project classified that's going on. So certain things are classified, and of course, as a military, you can't have everything opened up because you're building your own capacity as a nation. And there are, these avenues as a think tank, they can engage, and they can be part of. They can write about security trends that they think. We actually value not even senior scholars, but also young people's thinking. We have many interns now. We're trying to get more to our institute, because as 2/3 of the world is below 30 years old, and there are a lot of youngsters who are contributing to policy making, and Sri Lanka should actually listen to thinking of young people and all that. So those are important areas.
We are in conversation with Mr. Asanga Abeyagoonasekara, who is the Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies. We're discussing whither to Sri Lanka in terms of national security and defense. Mr. Abeyagoonasekara, Sri Lanka is also a transit point for drugs, banned substances, synthetic drugs. This indeed affects negatively our national security. How do you view this, and why do you think this is continuing to happen despite the regulations, despite the heightened security?
Actually, the recent raids and all, I have to congratulate all those officers, as well as, there's been amazing awareness to the entire public also, that Sri Lanka has been used as a transshipment hub for illicit goods and all that. So you need to sort of, as a hub, because of our strategic position, it could be used in a positive manner as well as it could be used in a harmful manner. So you should understand that. The trends of how do you sort of secure the waters and what are the measurements that we need to take in the next couple of years. Because as a think tank, what we need to do, what we sort of get people to think is on foresight, like what's going to happen in the future. So it's sort of foresight analysis, how we should sort of look at the long-term view, not the short-term. So how do you secure the waters and all that? So it is vulnerable because we are island geostrategic position and a perfect place for all this trafficking and all that. But how do we secure the waters and our borders is really important. So that's something that we need to sort of invest as a government, and also have proper regulations in place and all that. So I think Sri Lanka does have all that. In terms of
what are we weak in? Is it the implementation? If we have the regulations in place, what is lacking? Is it the fact that it's not properly implemented?
I think the investment. If you look at the Coast Guard, as well as in terms of securing the EEZ, so we don't have any surveillance from drones, as well as we don't use them. So we don't have a Coast Guard. We do have a Coast Guard, but not so much of patrol boats. So we need to strengthen. Just because we ended the war, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't strengthen the military. And some have the aspect, why do we even buy the fighter aircrafts and all that? We should. And it's a must. We should buy. And if you look at Bangladesh, they have a submarine. They bought a submarine recently, And so why do they have a submarine? And as a nation, so I think these things have to be built. Our capacity has to be built as a military. And so some say that we ended the war. We don't need to, and that's the wrong statement. I think we need to build our military, and because that's our strength. And national security is the top priority, and you can't ignore that.
In May of 2009, the Sri Lanka military defeated the LTTE. We are currently in a post-conflict state and doing much towards reconciliation and national unity. However, how do you see this panning out in terms of when you juxtapose that with national security?
Well, I think we need to win the diaspora somehow. The investment of winning the diaspora has been not so much, I would say. We don't have many lobbying groups for Sri Lanka, for the government. Lobbying groups, in a sense, lobbying for, like, you know, for the RFDIs, for government. The diaspora, there's a huge disconnect between the diaspora. What I mean by diaspora is not only the Tamils but also the Sinhalese and all the other groups. So we need to sort of bridge this gap. We need to invest in that, and it's very important to have a lobby group for us as a nation, that we don't need to spend on firms, lobbying firms.
Right.
It's Sri Lankans can lobby for Sri Lankans, and unfortunately there's a huge disconnect between the diaspora and even the members who come, expats who come to Sri Lanka, they come for a holiday and they go back, but expats can contribute immensely for a nation. If you look at India, the expats' contribution to India was for the IT industry. The Israel as a nation, huge contributions. I mean, so small nations like us, we should look from expertise from expats. We should open up even for like advice and all that and guidance. So it's really important to invest in those areas, because after defeating the LTT, now that was using hard power. So we need to invest in soft power. Soft power is on cultural diplomacy. Basically, most of the things that we tend to ignore. I mean, it's great that the Sri Lanka Army is. This time we had the defense, the conference, the symposium, and that was on soft power. So those are very important areas that we should invest in. And the moment we sort of build that sort of soft diplomacy, I think that we can work towards achieving those reconciliation. To work now, the reconciliation, the challenging journey. But one thing that the Sri Lankans should absorb is the universalism. We tend to forget that the universal values, universalism is really important. As individuals, I think if you look at like Rabindranath Tagore, who said, spoke about the entire world was much more important, not only about their own nation. This was actually mentioned by Kumartunga Munidasa. It's not only your own language is the greatest language, but other languages also. He was a linguist, researcher on the Sinhalese language. He said that not only the Sinhalese language, but the other languages are also important. So this is universalism, and this is what also Kadirgama also mentioned, saying that he's not first and foremost he is a universal human. I mean, he values the importance of sort of being a universal person, not labeled as a Tamilian. So it's really important at this decade to sort of bring in that universal values.
How does the government go about convincing the masses, the general public, of the importance of this universalism that you speak about?
They need to invest, I think, in this particular area, because they need to educate people. For example, Global Dignity, now that's a program that's run in 60 countries. And I've been trying to introduce this to Sri Lanka, and now it's about a year now I've been writing to the Education Ministry. But the Prime Minister also has sent a letter to the Secretary to, look in. I mean, these are important things for our country. I just want to introduce this. I mean, this happens around the world. 1 hour for the entire year, just 1 hour to practice dignity. Why it is important, what is dignity? Does our children know about it? Why is it important to respect other religions? Why is it important to respect other ethnic groups? I think these are very important programs. It has several dimensions. It brings you peace education, gives you knowledge about the world and all that. So, but this still we couldn't implement it yet.
Ms. Abeyagoonasekara, when we take Sri Lanka's education curriculum, since we are emerging from a post-conflict era after almost 26 to 30 years of a civil war that battered the entire country, don't you think it's of paramount importance that we inculcate these values that you speak of to the national curriculum? So don't you think that an education reform process should be implemented immediately?
When you asked that question, what came to my mind was Justice Veeramantri. He passed away a few weeks ago. He spoke at Lakshman Kadirgam Institute some time back when I was director there. He gave one of the brilliant speeches, I would say, and I didn't know much about him. And I learned what he had done to the entire world. He was instrumental in sort of bringing in peace education and introducing peace education to the entire world, actually. And he won a prize for UNESCO and all that. But he couldn't do it to his own country. Because education, what he said was that the Education Ministry didn't allow at that particular time, and there was a few attempts that he made. But these things are really important as a nation that has been through 3 decades of war. And if you look at not only in that aspect, but ragging, bullying, if you look at the incidents of ragging and that's going on, and what you need is the Global Dignity Program. It's very simple, and that Global Dignity Program has clear indications of why. I did this program in few schools, in Ladies College, St. Thomas's College, few schools, and you must see how the children come and take the mic and they speak about how what they experience, and actually the principals and the headmasters have thanked for sort of open, because they were not aware what was going on, and they thought that the kids know about these things and these values and all that, but and these are important things, I think, as a nation, and that's why we're trying to, we should somehow try to invest in these things.
My final question to you, since we're almost at the end of the show, Ms. Abeyagoonasekara, how does Sri Lanka move forward in terms of national security, not just in terms of investing in high-tech equipment, but also in ensuring that the hearts and minds of the citizenry are at one?
No, I think we have taken the right steps now. If you look at it, was creating these security think tanks and all that, so that public can engage, and in terms of giving their ideas, knowledge and all that. And Sri Lanka should invest in research, and that's the key thing that I want to mention, that if you don't invest in research and development, a lot of things that the policymakers talk about, making this place like Singapore or like South Korea or whatever, bringing our GDP to a higher level, and borrowing from China. If you look at it, Vietnam has borrowed about 22 billion from 2005 to 15 from China, and Pakistan about 44 billion. So Sri Lanka is around 13 billion. So borrowings are going on, and for development projects, Sri Lanka for infrastructure, the others for energy. But building your own capacity your own as innovations, you're spending on, I mean, how many patents do we have as a nation? Those are very important areas that we should sort of invest and work, and we get our youngsters to remain in the country and paying their right salaries. Most of my researchers left the country because they didn't have a salary, a proper salary. That's the only thing that I can't compete with the others. If I give them the right salary, they will never leave the country. They love the country. Actually, they've been amazing patriots. I mean, Sri Lankans are actually patriotic people who loves their country. It's just that the opportunity is not given. I mean, when they get into this, financial difficulties, so they have to make decisions to leave. So.
All right. So you are hopeful for the future of this country?
Of course, yes. So I'm optimistic, and I believe that the youngsters are a huge contribution to this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asanga Abeyagoonasekara, for joining us on this edition of Newsline. Faraz will join you again on Monday. Have a great day ahead.